Hey guys, Steve Simpson here with Central Florida Property Management. Hope everyone's doing great. Wanted to chat real quick about a subject I get asked frequently from some of our clients regarding asset protection and using LLCs or other entities versus insurance. Just kind of give my take on that, why I think that, what I do, and all that sort of stuff. So I should preface this by saying I'm not an attorney or an insurance broker, so you might want to consult with either or those parties along with what I'm saying, I suppose. All right, so what is asset protection? Usually the conversation I get asked by our clients goes something like this. Hey, should I put my property in an LLC? And the first question I usually ask is, well, what is your intention? And usually it has to do with limiting risk, liability, right? So basically, our client's afraid that if something happens in the property, they get sued, that the suit could attach to them individually and basically take all their money, right? So they want to put the property in LLC, the theory being that if that happened, the worst case, the suit would only take the property, not some other assets they have. So a couple of things with that. Firstly is that for the vast majority of people, at least for our clients, they have properties with mortgages on them. They do not own the property free and clear. And while I don't think this would technically ever really be an issue, but there's a very good chance that if you do have a mortgage, there's some fine print in that mortgage that basically says that if you change the ownership of the property, you would effectively void the mortgage. Not void's the wrong word, but the lender could call the mortgage, meaning they would say, hey, pay us all our money back in 30 days, or we're going to foreclose on you, right? The reason being is that they're lending you the money, not your LLC the money, which for a variety of reasons, they do that for their own risk abatement reasons. So if you just unilaterally go and put the property in an LLC, and again, I think if you pay your mortgage, it's not going to be a huge deal, but God forbid something happens where they're just scrounging for money and they find that you moved this property to LLC, I guess there's a chance they could call it, make you pay your money back, and all that sort of stuff. The second part is kind of from a practical perspective, which is two parts. One would be, okay, so a lot of people that want to put properties in LLCs own multiple properties. And so the idea being that if something bad happens in property A and I get sued, I don't want the person suing me to also be able to take property B. So they would put property A in property A LLC and property B in property B LLC. Well, from a practical standpoint, to keep an LLC, to keep an LLC, at least in Florida, you have to pay an annual registration fee, which I think is around $200. So it's not like it's a free thing you can do. There's an annual cost associated with doing so. Secondly, if it's a single member LLC, and again, I'm not an attorney, but meaning that you're the only owner of the LLC, there's a chance that in a suit, a judge or whoever else might say, well, yeah, it's technically an LLC, but the person made the LLC with the sole intention of protecting the asset. The LLC is not a true business entity. It has no business purpose. It's just for asset protection. And they will just say, no, even though it's owned an LLC, really the owner of the LLC owns the property. Therefore, the liability protection of the LLC more or less goes away. I'm not sure how often that actually happens, but I have heard of that being a possible downfall of that kind of strategy. So I know some people, kind of on an aside, do LLCs for privacy reasons. I have mixed feelings about this. LLCs are obviously in public record, so you can very easily look up who owns them. Now, if you trust an attorney or someone else that you could list as the administrator of the LLC, you could probably gain some privacy that way. But I think if you got sued and it was a legitimate and a large lawsuit, they would certainly be able to find out who actually owns the LLC. So if you just care about your tenant not knowing who you are, you live next door or something like that, yeah, it might work. But if you're thinking, oh, well, if I hide behind this LLC, they'll never know who I actually am, I don't think that's accurate. So the other option for asset protection is insurance. This is what I use. So most insurance policies on a property have a liability coverage up to $300,000, meaning that if you're sued for $300,000, the insurance company will pay that. They'll either fight the lawsuit with their lawyers or they will pay that amount. So I get what's called an umbrella policy, which basically is a policy that covers money's liability above the amount that the property insurance covers. So just for example, let's say I had a $3 million umbrella policy. That policy would cover from $300,000 and 1 cent up to $3 million. So the reason I do this is that, I guess just from a philosophical perspective, if I'm going to be paying money every year, which I would have to do for LLC anyway, I would rather pay money to an insurance company that has lawyers they can pay, an incentive to fight these lawsuits, and at the very worst case, they can stroke a check for the amount of money that I'm being sued for, rather than for effectively a piece of paper in the form of an LLC that I'm just going to hope serves the intended purpose in terms of asset protection. And even to kind of take it a step further, if you want to take an example, let's say you own 3-4 properties, and one of them you got sued and you had them all LLCs, so on and so forth, right? Well, let's say it's a good suit and they just take your property, right? So they say, hey, the LLC is responsible, or all the assets, the LLC is the property, we're just going to take the property. Well, on the alternative side, if I had an insurance policy for, let's say, $3 million, my insurance, and they sue me for 2.5, the insurance company might just stroke a check for $2.5 million. I get to keep my property, so I'm still better off, right? So the cost of those policies has been going up a little bit. I've heard from some insurance brokers that I work with that underwriters are less interested in writing them, and the amounts they'll want to write them for is kind of changing. However, I think big picture, if you look at the cost of them, it still makes more sense to go the insurance route versus the LLC route. It's what I personally do. I own all of my properties in me and my wife's name, and we just have a giant umbrella policy over the properties that we basically have grown. We've grown the size of the policy as our portfolio has grown to kind of keep up with what we have at risk. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below or give us a call. I know this is a subject where everyone kind of has different opinions of it. I'm sure depending on what lawyer you talk to or what insurance agent you talk to, they're going to tell you something different. They might have good reasons for doing so. That's just the way I do it. I also have debt on all my properties. So if I didn't, maybe there's a chance that I would go the LLC route. But since I have debt on mine, to me, this seems like the better move. Hope you guys are doing good. Talk to you soon.